Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I'm proud to bring you the Pep Talk with John Carl Pepe. Greetings, John,
Greetings, Hercules, and Happy New Year.
to you as well, and to everyone
Yeah.
else.
I hope you're staying healthy. I did not manage to avoid whatever's been going around recently, so I've kind of been a little blah the last couple days. But looking forward to tonight's show. It's a topic I think that a lot of people can really get into, can really sink their teeth into a little bit. It's a little bit of a continuation of our show from last month. So I will see you on the other side. As always, thank you for this opportunity. Happy New Year. And here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the Pep Talk. It is, at this time of recording, January 4th, 2026. Can you believe it? It's a new year. 2026. Here we go. One really thing I want to say briefly to kick off the show. I just wanted to dedicate this show to a friend of the show's extended family, we'll say, because he was never on the show, but I had a chance to talk with him. And of course, famously, I had his sister on last year. But I just wanted to dedicate tonight's show to Johnny Legend. Um, you know, uh, you were a super cool dude, Johnny, and we know you're out there just causing mayhem. So God bless Lynn and the rest of the family. And again, yeah, tonight this one will be for Johnny. If you're not familiar with Johnny, go check out the movie My Breakfast with Blassie. It is worth your time. So we're gonna get into it tonight. We are talking about creating art for the love of monsters, universal and otherwise. I think that's what I'm going for the title for this show, and I'm really happy to have two folks on here. I have a newbie. I have someone who has never been on the show but has actually listened and watched the show in the past, so I'm really excited to actually finally have him on because he's someone whose work I appreciate as much as I appreciate his visits into the store whenever I get to see him, because he is a very knowledgeable person, has a really interesting pedigree that I'm looking forward to talking about, and has a very talented artist as well. And then we have a returning guest, not just a returning guest, we have the first guest returning to the Pep Talk. This is my old friend Bart Capuano. Our friendship goes back to fall of 1989, and Bart is the most influential and consequential guerrilla filmmaker you have never heard of. That is how I feel what this gentleman has done, because the people who have seen his work have definitely been touched, moved, and changed by it, and have also been entertained. The people who have worked with him have also been touched, changed, moved, and entertained by working with him. And he is the definition of guerrilla filmmaking, and he is I would say, the best kept hush hush speak easy secret in independent filmmaking. So we'll see if we can gain some traction for him. But I also love that where he operates, he gets to do what he wants. So we have Bart Capuano returning to the Pep Talk, and we have Justin Leiter making his first appearance. So folks, give them a warm welcome. And we're going to start off with Justin. So Justin, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, specifically what kind of art that you dabble in and how you got started. Let's start with that.
Sure. Well, I am a graphic artist, illustrator that I've been doing professional illustration for over 30 years now. My main source of income has been every kind of illustration you can think of, but a lot of children's apparel, coloring books, Halloween costume design, sticker design, and my current job right now is I design ceramic figural cookie jars, mugs, and all kinds of home goods based upon Disney licenses, Marvel licenses. So it might have a Mickey Mouse cookie jar. It's in the shape of Mickey Mouse, and I design it. I show a front view and maybe a back view that gets sent as a drawing to the factory in China, and they produce an actual 3D object from my sketches. Uh, but I've done all kinds of illustration work, some comic book work in the past. And for myself, my own personal stuff, I draw a lot of Universal monsters, and my own creatures and aliens and my own characters. That's the stuff that I do for fun. And
Very
I sell some
cool.
of that as well. So
Very cool. Yeah, I can see the sketch behind you there.
that's
That
not mine.
that is not yours. That
That's
is a
Frank
Frank show.
Cho. That's
Yep,
a
that's a
Frank
Frank
Cho
show.
werewolf.
Yep,
Yeah,
but
back
definitely
there.
showing that, and you can see some of your Migo stuff back there too. You do
Yeah, there's a
like the
King Arthur. I
yeah,
had that as a kid, but that is one
nice.
that I got later on. I
Yep,
did have that original when I was a kid.
nice.
Uh,
Real
yeah,
quick,
I took a lot of stuff down, but yeah, there's still some stuff up there. Yeah.
nice. Now, some of these answers I will know because I know you, but we're gonna wing it. So, who are some of your influences when it comes to doing your own personal art? So, when you're drawing the monsters, who's the guy you
Yeah.
go to in your head? Is like that's the guy who I wanna who inspired me to do this. I'm gonna put my own spin on it because obviously you're not doing a remake or an homage.
Right.
But where's the guy? Who's the guy that you like? Were like, this is the guy that I want to be what this guy does. I want this guy's job.
I honestly, I wouldn't say that there is specifically one artist. I mean, there are guys like Basil Gogos and Drew Struzan and all these guys that draw unbelievably beautiful, realistic art for all kinds of, including especially Basil Gogos for Universal monsters. But when I draw that kind of stuff, it's probably going back to my school days when I went to the School of Visual Arts and I was taught painting, realistic painting, the kind of stuff that might have been done for young adult book covers. So I'm not really thinking of anybody. I'm just trying to draw something in my own pencil style that kind of looks cool. I would say influences more when I'm drawing my own personal work, which is like completely different style. More guys like Michael Golden or there's an artist, Jake Parker. There's some guys on Instagram that maybe don't have as big names as legendary type guys, but somewhere along those kind of route of style. But a lot of it is just my own personal, looking at stuff growing up, looking at underground comics, Rick Griffin, Gilbert Shelton, and Dave Sheridan, some of those guys,
Very cool.
So,
When so your current gig, you're doing these turnarounds, right, for 3D
yes,
objects.
yes,
Now Frank Miller famously has said about art is you have to know the ins and outs, all the workings of everything, and in order to really put that on the page. And you can
yeah.
see that in peak Frank Miller when the detail is everywhere, and now in
Mhm.
late period Frank Miller, even though the detail isn't there, you can see that it's there in his head, right? Like, or
Guess so.
anatomically
Maybe
things.
some of the covers are a little better than others, but
Some of
yeah,
the covers a little better than others.
I
I did like his 3 pages in the Deadpool Batman, even though it was
okay.
all just shadow, just all thick
Okay.
shadow figures.
Yeah,
You could
good.
still see the anatomy was there. You could see the
All
workings were
right.
there.
Yeah.
Um, do you feel that by drawing these sort of turnarounds, I can imagine you've done these sort of turnarounds before in your
I have
career,
done some when I worked for Party City. I mean, I've done, maybe a little bit in some previous jobs, but the first time I was really doing the side view, front view, not really a back view but I did some for myself, but was Party City when I was designing Halloween costumes, especially the masks. So I
right?
had to show the factory, the front view and the side view, and it had to all be lined up. Everything had the nose had to be hitting in the same place because they would sculpt it in China for at a clay at that point. Now most of the stuff is done 3D, but they still do some clay stuff.
Do you feel that when you get to do that, it helps inform your other flat 2-dimensional art because you're kind of now approaching it with that 3D in mind, or was that
uh,
always kind of in your process to begin with?
that was kind of always in my process, just from what I had a teacher when I was at School of Visual Arts. His name was Daryl Zudek, And I mean, I had thought about this kind of stuff, but it really wasn't like ingrained in my brain before I went to School of Visual Arts. And he just kind of really got it in your head about thinking about things in form and dimension. You know, you might be drawing the front of it, but you're thinking that the thing is a 3D form that's sitting in a real space. So you want to imagine what the back might look, even though you're just drawing the front. So that teacher was pretty influential to me, and he did a lot of like the young adult and paperback book covers that you might see in the 1980s and 90s. And he was not that old even back then. I don't know, probably in his 70s now, but
Mhm.
he was just, a terrific, terrific painter. Oil paints. I used to do a lot of oil painting back then. So I'm already kind of thinking that when I'm doing something, and if I'm doing something that's a universal monster or something from any movie, I'm looking at the photo reference. So I'm trying to get it as close to the photo reference as I can, but also give it a kind of like some sort of artistic feel. I want the pencil sketch, the pencil lines to feel drawn. I don't want it to look like, a super photo, rendered photographic. I want it to look like the photo in the reference, but I want it to have a hand feel to it, a sketchy kind of feel to it. So
Very cool. Nice, nice. Yeah. Almost just like like a just dashed out off the pen kind of rough but
yeah, I mean,
polished.
to a
Yeah.
degree. I mean, some I want to, bring to a little higher level, and some you do a little sketchier. And, sometimes I might just do something in pen and ink without any pencil drawing underneath, just direct using a ballpoint pen,
Hmm.
just drawing it directly or something. So,
Favorite license to work on. But then I'm gonna move to Bart and then we'll come back on some stuff.
favorite license to work on,
Yeah.
for the job that I have now,
In general, in your career.
general.
Yeah. Which was like you're like, I can't believe I get to do this.
Well, Marvel stuff's always fun.
Mhm.
Star Wars or Marvel, things like that.
Yeah.
But most of that stuff that when you're dealing with those things, you have to really stay within their guidelines. So, some of the licenses give you a little leeway,
Mhm.
but they have to stay on point, target to the actual characters and what they look like. So my favorite would be doing my own generic, which I did a lot of
Mhm.
children's wear. So it's like we need a dinosaur, or we need aliens in space, or whatever it might be, and it's like I can draw whatever I want. So
Yeah, yeah.
that was
So
that was
that
my favorite.
because that is you're putting yourself out there and then you go out in the wild and you see somebody wearing something that you created even though it was for a generic licensee. That's really
Sure.
cool rather
It's
than
yeah,
rather than draw this Spider-Man just like Mark Bagley but not enough so that
right.
Mark Bagley comes calling for money.
No, and when you're dealing with licenses like that, you're using style guides for
Right.
sleepwear and stuff like that. They literally are giving you the artwork. You're not really doing, it's more like color forms,
Right.
rearranging it and putting it in, putting new graphic elements and designing and making them bigger and putting them in a box and putting effects behind it, and logos and stuff like that. So you're not redrawing that stuff. There was every now and then there's a little bit of redrawing. And I
Mhm.
worked on Power Rangers, one of my very first licenses that I worked on back in 1994. And we got to do a little bit of redrawing on the Power Ranger stuff. And I was really into it at that time. I was just getting into Sentai, which is
Right.
Japanese superhero teams from the original Japanese, and they had just brought it to America at that time. So that was kind of cool to be working on it at that point.
When you say redrawing stuff for the Power Rangers license, I have this image of like taking other Japanese Sentai, artwork and redrawing it with the to make it look like the Power Rangers.
Well, it was more like, moving his arm up, or
Right.
putting him in a different pose or something like
But
that,
just like how those shows were conceived of cut and pasting
Oh
other
yeah, the
other
American Save-On
properties.
shows, yeah, where they literally took the stuff from the Japanese, the action scenes, and they intercut it with the American kids in high school. The original Japanese are a bit more serious and
Yep.
cooler, and a little
Just
more
like
violent.
that, just like that Japanese Spider-Man, the emissary from hell,
Oh
man.
yeah, of course,
That is such a Power Rangers thing.
Spider-Man, or whatever it's called. Pronounced.
Spider-Man. So,
Spider-Man.
So I'm gonna go bring it over to Bart. We're gonna bring Bart into the conversation, and then we're gonna kind of get a little bit more into the monsters, the Universal monsters and stuff. But Bart, welcome back to the Pep Talk. I know you have been keeping up with the show in the years you've since been with us. Unfortunately, yes, your show is from the old audio days and is presently archived, but we have yet to do something with them. But I do want to get those out there at some point. I know we've talked about that. But welcome. Thank you for being on the show today. Happy New Year. Belated happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks. Happy New Year to you as well. Yeah.
So you have been, like I think I said at the top of the show, you've been making movies for as long as I've known you.
Yeah.
And you've been making movies on your own terms for as long as I've known you as well. What was it that first got you to want to do that as a young lad, aside from the fact that you had access to such a great backlot with the woods in your suburban Jersey backyard growing up?
Correct.
You had a lot of great opportunities for great cinematography. What really was it? What was the thing growing up that you were like, I want to make movies?
Wanting to probably first you just want to retell anecdotes, stories that you tell among your friends. Kid, like more than anybody, you're like in jail when you're when you're in grammar school and you're in like gym class and you got an hour to kill and you tell each other really vivid stories, and or at least we did. And then also dreams. But part of those stories that you would tell each other at school were like, oh, I had a dream last night and it was crazy. And the ability to embellish upon the dream that actually happened was fantastic. So just the fact that I knew we could be creative all the way as early as age 9, 10, 11, whatever. And then by 12, I think we were making little movies. But by the time I was 15, I had a cast and crew. You were in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, our first Universal monster movie attempt, where you played the butler, Poole. I think his name was Frank Poole.
Yes.
Is that true?
I think it was. Yes. I think it was Poole.
2001, A Space Odyssey.
Or was it Utterson? Was it Utterson or Poole?
Utterson was a friend.
Utterson was the friend. Yes. Because we were trying to do the actual book. We were trying to actually stick. You were trying to stick close to the actual book.
It was an adapted, abridged classic from the Waterloo Classics Library. Yeah, which was like an edition of young adult reader for classic novels. And that was where it started. The idea that dreams and the stories we tell every day were so vivid and intense. Sometimes you'd ultimately say at the end of that whole sentence every day of your life for about 13 years, you say, I had this dream and I did this and that, and it would have made a great movie. And so I was like, let's start filming them, and because people do it, you felt encouraged. Spielberg, at the time, there was a comedian who joked about how much money Spielberg had. I forget the joke, but I just remember that stuck out. And I thought, like, okay, filmmakers, you can film stuff, your dreams and your stories, and maybe you make money. I never made any money. I went the exact opposite way because I think I was originally motivated to capture all that stuff and to make money. And somehow, I don't know. I just felt like if you try to make money, the vision gets lost. And it's a tight vision. Otherwise, why bother doing it? I can't make it for anybody else. I just have to do it and be driven to do it in a short amount of time before I have to get back to my real normal, very normal, sadly, too insanely normal life. That, like, to do what we are doing, it is guerrilla, because we just got to go in and out like it's a heist, because otherwise it's not just what we're doing, it's how long we're doing it for.
And you're specifically talking about for your process, the films that you make, the stories you want to tell. You're not discouraging people who want to go out and make money doing their art. This is just what you have found best working with you, because, the circumstances that I remember when, in high school, making your first sort of fantasy epic, because you've traded in a lot of different genres, Apples of Eden. and we were like, hey, we get done, with practice at this time, and we got this amount of sunlight left. Let's go shoot a couple things in the woods. Let's get that done. Boom, boom, boom. And and that was something that you worked on for a while, and then you went out to San Diego and you made a few movies there. And then when you came back to New York, you made a few movies, culminating, I think, in what became Damp Man, which was a reworking of an old, was it a Weird Tales? It was an old pulp story, a Weird Tales pulp character. Yeah.
An Allison V. Harding character. She wrote a story about about the sheer terror of this man called Damp Man. Yeah. It was like 1947, 48, 49. There were 3 stories.
Yeah. And then you reworked it a modern day. He was a hero instead of a menace, and you could see auras. That was a big part of he's an aura seer. And look, that movie came out great. Again, it's another one of yours that I was in. I know my dad really enjoyed it, and
that was amazing. I saw your dad there.
Yeah.
To let you know, though, that was an interesting one because I had wanted to make it for a really long time. But I couldn't make it the way I wanted to, and I let it alone for a long time. But the thing was, I went to graphic design school, and in school we had a film project to do for a month, and I thought I would do that whole thing in a month, and I couldn't. But that's what got started, and that's when I was in touch with you and some of the other guys and girls in the cast, and it was really something that I thought we could actually pull off as long as we're fluid in the storytelling. Let's just make it up as we go. And and it came together. So it was just an experiment for all, because it's, maybe not awesome. It could be. I'll re-edit it.
You did have actually a really solid script for that to start off with. It wasn't all just improv. In fact, I remember after that first reading, a couple people were like, "This would make a great graphic novel." I remember hearing some feedback from your initial draft for Damp Man, and that's part of your process, that you do have some ideas laid out, but you do also allow for the improv on your part as well as the actors, and that always, I think, makes for a fun process. It can be challenging, but it's still, I think one of the great things that I've enjoyed, especially about doing this recent thing, was that it really was a collaboration. There was some really good give and take on some ideas and how to accomplish some of the stuff that you want to do, because this is probably one of your more effects heavy works.
Frankenstein.
So what you're working on now, because you kind of put the movies away for a little bit, and then as you famously said, when you turned 50, you had your midlife crisis. Your midlife crisis wasn't to buy a sports car; it was to make a Frankenstein fan film. And so you wound up with 2 movies, apparently.
I like them. They came out pretty good. I was surprised. It was fun to get gritty and do it. And you were an enormous hand in all of it, both creatively to bounce the ideas off in the conditions, like to go from, here are the notes, let me text 1,000,000 pages to you, let's go do it, and then to be out there in the conditions and to be like, all right, this isn't going to work, or this costume piece is failing, or we forgot to bring this, and we just were like, okay, let's just do it. Always remembering too that that's kind of sometimes how they had to handle it. It's how all filmmakers have to handle it. So just go with it. It was pretty awesome. You did a great job. Played many characters and too many.
Yeah, I was your Dwight Fry. I was your Dwight Fry. I played different characters, looking very different throughout. Yeah.
I could say that you were the Lon Chaney Jr.
He
played a lot of different characters too, but and Bela Lugosi. Like when I watched Bela Lugosi play Frankenstein's monster recently in which one was it? I think Frankenstein Meets Wolfman.
Mm-hmm.
Bela Lugosi is the monster in that one, and he's you realize that he's visited him and Lon Chaney took the tour of every Universal film. They show up. But Bela Lugosi himself even winds up doing the same thing. By he kind of fills in all these parts, but they're big parts, like Igor.
Right. Right.
Cool.
And so part of that too, I mean, it wasn't, you know, one of the great things was the help that you were getting from various people who, yeah, we all had lives and we were able to contribute, you know, what we could when we could. But that sort of strength in numbers aspect I thought was really cool in this project. So really quick on this project, as far as when did you start conceiving and writing it, and when did you finish filming it and then begin the editing process?
Wow. Okay, sure. So we were in, you know, it's hard to remember. The news stories at the time were getting to me. uh, we were about to go into election season. And
Okay.
it's just a lot of tension in the air. And part of that included friends who just, I don't want to talk, right? Unless you want to talk about politics, I don't want to talk. Or, you know, I don't want to talk about politics and you probably do, so I don't want to talk, you know? So it was just like nobody was circulating conversation or anything or ideas. It was getting like oppressive. And I just remember thinking it's time to make a movie. I just turned 50 and none of that's more important than my own life right now. So I don't care about politics. What can I do to distract myself and everyone else from not just the politics, but my cat, that cat right there, that beautiful cat. She had been diagnosed with cancer, but she's living and she's well and she's full of steroids and power and amazing. So she's not gone. She's great. But I was a little panicked at the time. And, you know, there was tension in the air. So I just reached out to those who I knew who would be willing to step out of all that mayhem and just get involved in a project and step out. And we did. You and Jason and a bunch of other people, Kate and Candace, and we all got together and out into the woods and just were like, let's make it raw and gritty, but still black and white, old school, hokey pokey, filmy, and with mid-Atlantic accents. Hey, see here, come now, shut up. It was great. And we just sailed through it. I had an idea. I said, this is how I want it to be from beginning, middle to end. But like, let's probably try to make it. Like I knew from the beginning, the homunculus characters from Dr. Pretorius's cameo in Bride of Frankenstein, which should be a part of it. I thought they would be a great opportunity to start that story. So that was a part of it from the get-go.
And that was a bit of an effects challenge that we had to negotiate and work through.
But we did forced perspective, you know, just like pick up Frankenstein over there, you know. It was fun and it was great. And you acted to it. We pick up your head. And then we did as many quick cuts as possible to large scale models of like a skeleton. And then we used well, you'll see the film. But in that is where the film divided by creating by being inspired to make the story using the homunculus characters as like a drive for the narrative. I had the mermaid and the devil who I wanted to both be in the same story. And by putting them in the same story, they barely intertwined. And suddenly I realized they both evoke the deepest emotional story course for the Frankenstein monster in his journey. Because the story is about the Frankenstein monster and just his journey through the world today. Or actually, it's not even today. It's like 1931. It's the anniversary. He wakes up from the snow, a snowy grave, on the anniversary of the film's release. So it's like November, but it's like November 2031. Right? And so whatever, but it's inconsequential because the future doesn't matter. He's in the woods.
He's in the woods. And what exactly? I mean, you know, look, people make fan films about anything now, and you know, I know you have a lot of loves. I know that Universal Monsters was probably one of the first loves. Like a lot of us, we were exposed to that as a kid. But when you were deciding, you know, what specifically, you know, what was the chicken and the egg situation? You knew you wanted to make a fan film. You knew you wanted to do a Frankenstein love letter, or was it you knew you wanted to do a Frankenstein love letter? Let's make a fan film. What was the impetus there? Was it the,
you know, I've been waiting for the holy moment for decades. Actually, I stopped making films because it takes so much blood, sweat, and tears, and it's got to really be worth it. And to just improv through stuff without an idea really can drive you crazy. So you have to fall in love with something, and you have to like want it to align with other people. I love a lot of different things, but I was like, who else loves stuff, you know? And maybe the biggest fan of Frankenstein is like a SAG actor and couldn't really participate in our stuff. But I know that it doesn't take a mega fan to be a part of something. I'm not even of the Universal monsters. He's not the monster in Frankenstein story is not my favorite, but I watched all the Universal films during the COVID time, and I just really baked those ideas into my brain, that those were fun to watch, but they like unfulfilling. If you watch the whole arc of Universal stories, they sort of fall apart, not coalesce or come to a grand, you know, as a child, Frankenstein, Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein's great. But anyway, I just thought, like, what happens after all of that? And that's the only story. Like Dracula's story's told, the Mummy story's told. I mean, you could always see more. The Mummy story is overtold. But I was like, Frankenstein's story is even overtold. But like, what happens to the monster after? They keep getting caught up in the scientists, and I just want to follow the monster. And I feel like an old man. I'm 50, and maybe being a boyish young lad was fun. You could be perceived as like innocent and hopeful, and now we're older and people just expect us to be a certain way. And by no means is it horrible. It's just sometimes I'm a little surprised that like when little children, like my nephews or nieces at one point or another have been just like, oh, it's horrifying. You know, you just wonder like, oh, wow, I guess I've gotten older. I'm a monster now. So you just think, okay, I'm a little scary to people, you know. Like I wore the makeup in Central Park, and that woman at the gardens was like, you know, you're scaring children. Don't come over here. Just don't. And I was like, the more I tried to ask why, the more she freaked out, and I realized that's how the monsters get caught up in getting in trouble. Just walk away. Just walk away.
You know,
so
Bart,
away.
It's
Took
interesting.
off the makeup and got back to normal.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like, you know, the monsters appeal to us as kids because, you know, we kind of are, because they're monsters and they have these cool looks to them, and they're bad, but you know, there's like Frankenstein's got the heart, and you know, all the things that kind of go into what we love about these fictional stories as kids and the way they're presented specifically in the Universal tableau. But you're right, getting old, you start to feel like a monster. You don't move as fast as you do.
Yeah.
You know, bending over, you make these sounds that you don't want to make, and you feel like you're scaring people because you're old now. Like that's
I grunt. I scare my girlfriend.
The same. Yeah. A mutual friend of ours, Ken.
You want your
Reedy.
eggs poached or scrambled?
What's that? Oh, I just dropped something. I had to bend over and pick it up. You know, bear with me. I'm standing up again. You know. But you know, Ken Reedy, our mutual friend Ken Reedy, had a great line because he still weightlifts and he does his amateur professional wrestling and things like that. And he had said on this show a couple years back, he said, you know, I said, how do you do it? Because he's a little older than us, right? And he said, I could do anything I could do when I was in my 20s. It just takes me longer to recover now in my 50s.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think it's in those recovery moments some of Frankenstein was born, because the movie begins with him waking up out of a snowy grave, and that's me every morning. You know, so let's start the day. Let's start the film. You know,
and you have had
you've been sewn to you know, I've broken bones and enough has happened, and by the time you're 50 you feel like you've been sewn back together from the parts of the dead.
Yeah, knowing your medical history, yes, you have had a lot of recovery to work off of, exactly, and emerging resurrected. But
it's about as average as a sports. I think anyone who's played sports all their lives, and then or it's some of the forest injuries,
an avid hiker, sure, rock climber, absolutely.
I've been impaled.
Yeah. So we're gonna bring it back to Justin for a little bit,
cool.
And then we're gonna talk a little more Universal monsters, kind of get a group session here, so we can chime in whenever we want with any feedback. But Justin, I really wanted to talk to you a little bit tonight about your pedigree, about your parents, because you know, as somebody whose father was a writer, you know, my father was a journalist, he was a sports
Yeah.
writer, you know, in New York in a certain era. I was pleasantly surprised to meet your father when you brought him to the shop that one day,
Yes.
and that your father is a theater historian. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
Uh,
Before I talk about that, I just wanted to quickly preface that Bart and I also have something in common because I actually, my first love, I mean, I drew as a kid, but my first love that I really thought I was going to go into was filmmaking. And I I made films when I was in high school, and made a werewolf movie called Lycanthrope that was basically an American werewolf in high school, and it was written by my friend, and his not kidding you, his name was Wolfgang, and he and I were both obsessed with werewolves, and he did an amazing sculpt of a werewolf head and he cast it, and he did the full. Life cast of my face with the plaster, and I sat under for a half an hour with straws through my nose. And his father was a dentist, and he made, really nice false teeth. And I played his friend, the Jack character, and he was the David character. And yeah, so he wrote it, I directed it, we both starred in it. He did, and I did some effects. We were able to use the school after hours and threw blood all over the place.
That's amazing.
nice.
Yeah.
That's great.
So
Can we see
yeah.
this? Can we see this now to this day?
That would
It
be
exists in
vintage.
it's gone through the projector so many times that it has gotten kind of ripped up, and I don't think it's online. I have stills from it. I have some pretty cool stills that I could show you. Um, but yeah, and I made other movies and I went to college. My first college I was a film major, film and art, and I was 16 millimeter at that point. Everything, of course, previous
Yeah.
was great. But yeah, I mean, I showed it. I went to apply to Pratt, and I showed it at that time, and I guess it was in a little bit better shape at that time. And he's like, "Oh yeah, you're in." I mean, but now if it's pretty bad, it's got some decent scenes in it, and it's just that the editing and over time the film just got chopped up and the sound got muffled and whatnot. But it wasn't bad for the time, 1982.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Right on, right on.
Yeah, long time ago. So, but yeah, to answer your question, going back to my dad. So what was the exact question about my
So
dad?
your father is a theater historian, but isn't there like a more
Yes.
specific angle of theater history? Is it like Brooklyn theater history specific, or was that
Well,
just a project?
that is what he has been focusing on seriously for the last few years, but his initial area of expertise was Japanese theater and kabuki.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I mean, he's into all kinds of theater. He's written or edited somewhere 30 something books, most of them on Japanese theater, but a few on Broadway, Shakespeare, and the last couple on Brooklyn. He's just been obsessed with the history of Brooklyn theater because there really isn't that much information about it going back to the 1800s, through the turn of the century, I guess. But yeah, Japanese theater is still, involved in that to a degree. And he taught himself how to read and write and speak Japanese in the 1960s through the 70s. And my family lived in Japan for a year, 1974 to 1975, where he got a Fulbright grant, I believe it was, to uh, study and be able to go to the Kabuki Za, the actual theater, and go to the library there and use all their reference while he was researching his translation of a Kabuki encyclopedia, which was published in, I guess, 1975 or six, something like that.
Wow, wow.
So yeah, so my family lived there in Tokyo, and I went to Japanese school for 2 months, and then my sister and I got transferred to a place called ASIJ, American School in Japan, where we finished. I was second grade for me and sixth grade for my sister. So
Wild, wild. And your mother is the antithesis of every mother in America for a certain year
Right.
hobby. Because when every mom in America for about 30 or 40 years was telling their kids, don't waste your time with comics, you throw that stuff
Right.
away. Your mother literally wrote the book on collecting comics and grading comics, if I'm not mistaken. Perhaps the
It
first
is.
book.
I believe it is the very first. There's like another book around that same time. I believe it came out after my mom's book, and it's not as nowhere near as well produced. More of like an independent kind of book. My mom's book, collecting comic books, was published by Little Brown and Company, so it was like a big publisher, and professionally done book and everything. So yeah, I mean, my mom, her brother, my uncle, was born a few years before her. I think he was born maybe 1937. And he was the pack rat type, totally obsessed with comic books. He would buy every single comic book. And, so by the time like his favorites were like the ECs, Tales from the Crypt and Haunt of Fear and Vault of Horror and all that stuff. By that point, he was already a teenager, but he had been buying all the Supermans and Action Comics and Detective and all that stuff. And he was the type that, if, like you were saying, his mother, my grandmother, there's two different stories. Either she threw them out when he went into the army or the navy or something in the late 50s, and when he came back, they were all gone. The other story, and I think this might be the truer story, is that my mom sold them back to the candy shop or whatever it was, for like 2 cents a piece. That's what they would do back then. And then, the kids could then go and buy the used copy for 5 cents or whatever it was. So yeah, they were all gone. Uh, and of course, if he literally the type of guy that would keep everything, and unfortunately they were all gone. So probably, a few $100,000 worth of comics that were sold back to the shops or thrown away or something. My dad as well. He was a voracious comic book reader in the 40s and early 50s, because he was born 1940, and he was reading. He actually, a number of years ago, he wrote me a list of and he remembered all the different titles that he was buying. The timely comics. He was really into the Human Torch, but he also liked some of the stories like Little Lulu and things like that, and the EC comics as well. But he was starting to get, a little old, 12, 13. He probably started trailing off. That's when he was getting into girls.
And when you had that moment as a kid, when you were a teenager, when you're like, Ma, I don't know if I really want to read comics that much anymore. And she's like, you get more comics. You buy all the comics.
No, it wasn't nothing like that with me. I was always, I remember my grandmother taking me to the local comic, the convenience store, or the candy shop, and it was my weekly comics every Thursday back then was my weekly comics. And she's like, you have so many comics. Why do you need more comics? I was like, you don't get it. It's not, these are the new ones. You got the continuing story.
It's like your stories. Yeah. It's, you got to equate the soap opera aspect, right?
Right.
So, especially to the older generation. Right. But,
yeah,
that's so that's amazing to me that you had the one mom in America that really encouraged comic collecting.
Yeah, well, it kind of came about. It was a way, to connect with me, because I was already reading comics since probably like 1972, 73. I mean, maybe I wasn't reading them. My dad was reading them to me. Sometimes he would draw some of the character, the Spider-Man. Dad, can you draw this Spider-Man pose or something? But I, on my own, I probably started buying them probably maybe 1975, 76, going to the candy shop and buying my weekly comics. And I have not missed a week, aside from if I've been out of the country, like in Japan. Well, that I wasn't really buying them at that. That was a little early. But, whatever vacations I might have taken over the number of years, and I'd try and find a comic shop there. But basically, I've gotten my weekly comics almost every single week since sometime in 1975, 1976.
Wild.
Um,
And knowing your habits a little bit, I know that you love a lot of the sci-fi horror comics from the 60s, the early Marvel monster comics,
sure, Kirby
and the
Monsters,
EC,
Crypto
I mean
Monsters,
the EC crime and
ECs.
horror comics
Yeah,
that's the forbidden fruit to a young child.
science fiction ones,
Uh,
weird science, weird fantasy. Yeah, I
yeah.
have a lot of those.
When do you feel like as far as when the Universal monsters come in, when do you feel that they hit your radar as a kid and kind of pushed you, as one of your influences for going into art as far as what you
Yeah.
want to draw and stuff?
Well, already been reading like Famous Monsters of Filmland, so I had known about them from those magazines, and I also had a book, a very famous book by, I think that the guy's name is Clifford. I can't remember. It's a green cover. It's got paintings of all, it's got a big Frankenstein on the cover, and it's like a wraparound montage of all, not just Universal monsters, but all monsters. It was a photo book, like a
Mhm.
coffee table book that my dad had. Um, and I looked at that book as a kid, probably started looking at it at like 6 years old or something. And it terrified me because a lot of the pictures in there were very realistic, not some Universal monster movies, but just Hammer films or whatever it might be. And
Mhm.
some of the pictures were pretty gruesome and they're very realistic. And to me, they seem real. So
Mm.
that book kind of scared me. But the first time I really got into the Universal monster movies was late 70s on PBS in New York, um, Channel 13. They started airing on Saturday nights the Universal monster movies. And I look forward to that every weekend. And I would tape them and I recorded them. I had a VHS recorder, 1979, one of the
Wow.
early. It was a JVC portable one. We had a video camera that you'd go around and lug this 30-pound tuner with you or whatever. But yeah, that's when I first really started watching them. Was I guess 1979, 1980, something like that,
Yeah.
when they were
It
showing
it
them.
It's interesting because the difference of about 10 years. So it's like Bart and I didn't really grow up with Famous Monsters of Filmland. We grew up with Fangoria, right? That was
I grew up with
our
Fangoria too.
yeah, yeah.
I was
But
right
that
there
was
with
our
Fangoria
that
too.
was our first horror magazine. For you, that was
Yeah.
the successor, right?
I remember
We had the
actually
Crestwood
asking
House.
my dad to pick up, what's that?
Oh, so we had the Crestwood House books too,
And the
right?
Crestwood House books. I
Yeah.
remember. So when we always talk about
Those are the
this,
ones like that you could get from school or something,
they,
right?
they
Yeah,
were in their school
exactly.
Yeah.
library.
I
They
don't,
were
I've seen them later. I
the
don't
orange and
remember
black.
those when I was a kid. I've seen them like, on people posting them on some Facebook pages, and I'm like, those are cool. I want to get those, but I don't remember them from back
That was
then.
our steady kid diet. Yeah. So that would have
Okay,
been, you would have been, I guess, high school when we were kind of
maybe.
digesting those as kids. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, but we both also, I know, we've talked about this, that the PBS Saturday nights, 11 o'clock, that's Universal Monster movie time. And
Was
I
it
know
11? Was it that late that they showed it?
that's what I remember. It might be
I'll
earlier,
take your
but
word for it. I don't
I was a
remember.
kid. Yeah. So like,
They had a guy
any,
introducing it at the beginning
yeah,
and the
yeah. Anytime
background.
past 8 o'clock on a Saturday night felt like gravy.
Okay.
So, but yeah. So Bart, right? That's about the same time, like in the early '80s, growing up, the Saturday night PBS, right? That was.
It was that, and it was also something on channel, and I don't know how this came about, but I think it was on channel 5 or 6, and it was like a hard to get station on the, like, I just had to use the TV antenna at my grandma's house, but I would watch the Universal films and the Hammer horror films,
Mhm.
where
Wow.
Christopher Lee would die in an interesting, unique way every time. I could see those, and I wish I knew how or why I was getting them, but I would get them. I'd have to fight a bunch of TV snow, cosmic radiation, background radiation to get the image, but I would get it. And that was like, yeah, probably like 82, between 82 and 83 maybe.
Interesting. Yeah,
So
I remember the Hammer stuff occasionally showing up on like a Saturday afternoon on like Channel 5 or something
it
like
was
that.
probably five.
Right.
But it didn't grab me like the Universal monster stuff
Oh
did. I
yeah,
did
they were epic.
Just the black and white and just the look, the Jack Pierce designs
Hmm.
and makeup applications, um, the monsters that were well rounded, right? I mean, again, like everyone always cites, especially what Karloff brought to Frankenstein in the first two films, especially just that, that confused monster. He wasn't just
Yeah.
the evil, conniving monster. He was the confused monster. And I think that,
Misunderstood.
yeah, misunderstood. And that
Yeah, yeah,
resonated with awkward kids. Like, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Uh, Justin, do you have a favorite? What it would be your favorite Universal movie?
I
If you had to
still
pick.
I still gravitate to the original Frankenstein just because and the original Dracula just because they're so raw and
Hmm.
just the naivety of them and just the way that Karloff looks in that first one where his face is so gaunt because he took his dentures out, right, to make his cheeks sunken. A little later and by Bride of Frankenstein his face is a little bit filled out. I mean, most people say yes, Bride of Frankenstein is the better film and the production values are better. Uh, but something about the rawness of the original. But on top of that, I really love the Invisible Man. Uh,
Hmm.
Yeah.
because I mean, out of all the Universal monsters, he's the most evil. He's
He's
really
the
evil.
most evil.
Yeah, he really kills people, and
Yeah.
wants to kill I mean, he would kill thousands. I mean,
Yeah.
the train goes off, how many thousands, hundreds or
Mhm.
whatever people, and he wants to basically take over the entire world.
Mm.
And
That's
Frankenstein kills a little girl, throws by accident, a couple of village people or something, but
yeah.
he's not super evil in that
He's
regard.
he's
Bride of Frankenstein, what does she do? Nothing. She just dies in a fire.
Yeah, it's true. The Invisible Man is a mass murderer,
Yeah.
uh, incredibly evil, though they do make the case it is the serum that is making him more
Okay.
evil.
Right.
But on top of all
A
that,
little.
he's doing it all while naked. And
He's doing it. Yeah. Yeah.
that to me
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
the peak
Yeah.
right
Right.
there.
Yeah. Right. In the cold,
In the
in the
snow.
snow. Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah. No, I just actually read the Invisible Man, the IDW. Uh,
Or Image is doing those, the Universal
Image. I'm
Monster
sorry.
series.
Right,
Yeah,
right. The
yeah.
Image series, which I thought was pretty good. It actually had a real kind of surprise ending, I think, to issue number 2, where I really thought it was going to go somewhere else, and it didn't go where I wanted it to go. I mean, it kind of ended okay, but there was a shock ending, in the middle of it, and it didn't, fulfill the promise that it had. I felt, but it was
Yeah,
overall pretty good.
this has been an interesting experiment. Bart, or anybody who's watching who's not aware, Image Comics have been doing these Universal monsters inspired 4-issue miniseries, and some of them are retellings of the existing movies. Case in point, the Dracula one is a retelling of the Todd Browning 1931 Bela Lugosi film,
Mhm.
but really more through Renfield's point of view, and really locks more into Renfield and his experience. The Frankenstein is told from the point of view, follows the tracks with the James Whale movie that we all know, which again, Justin and I do agree is fantastic. It is one of those adaptations that has eclipsed the source material in so much as how it has streamlined that story. And that is the story that everybody knows versus the novel. And I think that's not
Right.
necessarily a
Sure.
bad thing.
Right.
But this takes that movie and does it through the eyes of a young child who happens to see Fritz and Victor in the cemetery where we see them at the beginning. He follows to the castle, and then you're watching the whole thing, the whole event of the movie play out from this character that we did not see in the original movie because this is a sort of a reimagining. Creature of the Black Lagoon was sort of a more radical, not quite a sequel, not quite a retelling, very much its own thing. But yeah, The Invisible Man was very unique because it told the story before the story.
Right. It's like a
Uh,
prequel to it. Yeah.
which really does lean into the insanity of the character.
Right.
That especially how he does develop the serum and what he does with the serum before, and he even tries it on himself and where that goes. It's very dark, very dark, which again in line with that original movie. But yeah, I'm glad they're doing them. I've loved the creative team and the art on these books. Are they necessarily what I really have wanted to see from this line? Not 100% across the board, but I really like it. And I like that we're getting this stuff. And I think that
Sure, yeah, I'm
that's
happy, yeah.
that's the great thing about it, is that there's still a love for these characters,
Yeah.
and a desire for these characters, to the point where, again, like I mentioned earlier, it's in 2025, everybody wants to make a Spider-Man fan film, and people are still making Star Wars fan films. Everyone wants to make Star Trek fan films. Not a lot of people are doing Universal Monster fan films, and yet I
Yeah.
always happen to know a guy who has spent the last 2 years of his life working on this and coming up with 2 movies. So really quick, Bart, with that, before we start to say our goodbyes here, I think we know from your response, but what is your favorite Universal Monsters movie?
Gosh, I'm sorry, I don't have a quick one. Favorite. So, I mean, first of all, I agree though that the Invisible Man, I had that in my deep dive with Universal Films. I saw the Invisible Man. I think it was the first one I watched, and I was like, this guy is the killer. He's psycho. He's crazy.
Yeah.
Kills so many people. Yeah, and everybody, no one else compares. But for my whole life, it was Dracula. Like, I was obsessed with it. For me to ignore that is foolish. But now it's probably Frankenstein. By the experience that I had making it, I have adopted it as my sorry child. I have like a deep love for the Frankenstein saga now. I think that's my favorite Frankenstein movie. My favorite Universal series now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's especially the first 3.
Yeah.
And I think James Whale was the far superior director. I love Todd Browning. I think he's a great director, but I think that James Whale, just what he puts, especially in the first 2 movies, it's phenomenal. What he was doing back then.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, for my favorite, because it is the internet and it is designed for people to say things to upset people, I'm gonna say Jaws. Jaws is my favorite Universal monster. Anybody who doesn't think that, anybody who doesn't think that Jaws
I mean,
would
if you want to go that far ahead in time, that's a great film. That's a different.
You said black and white, John.
I know. I'm just doing it to be. I'm just doing it to get clicks, guys. No, I would probably put Invisible Man as my absolute favorite. There is just something about how terrifying Claude Rains is in that movie, with just his voice, the technological achievement of that movie, the way it adapts the source material, it just all really clicks for me. Again, it's another James Whale joint. The only holdback, it's as with Bride of Frankenstein, a little too much use of his friend, that Irish woman who screams a lot in both Bride of Frankenstein.
He's in the Invisible Man too.
An Invisible Man, yeah, too much, throwing her a little too much bones, but she does add a lot of color, and is definitely a treasure of the Universal movies as well. Yes. So I forget her name, but she's great. We love her. So folks, that's going to be our show. We got about a minute and a half left. So Justin, thank you so much for being here. Where can people see your artwork, and how can they get in touch with you if they want a commission or anything like that?
Sure. Well, you can find me on Instagram. I am Common Leiter, and that's spelled KAMENLITER. So I'm at Common Leiter on Instagram. And you can go to www.commonlighter.com. You can find my website. And you can get in contact with me that way. You can see my art.
Awesome. Thank you again, Justin, for being here. Bart, thank you as always. First guest and returning guest. If people want to get in touch with you, they want to chat with you or whatever, do you want to drop something or no?
I will come find you.
Bart will find you.
I'll tell you what though.
He will know if you want to talk to him.
You did an art piece of Vincent Price as there's something, and it's a movie I hadn't heard of, so I want to check it out. The face looked like Vecna. You drew it? I checked out your Facebook. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Are you talking
PH Vibes? Was it?
oh,
Fifth?
Oh,
the
Dr.
Abominable
Fives.
Dr. Fives?
Yeah.
I didn't know
Yeah,
about
that
that.
is a great movie. There's two of them. Yeah, those are
That could
great
be a new
movies.
universal favorite.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. They're not Hammer, but they're the other
The
British.
Corman, the Corman
Oh,
stuff,
okay.
Not
right?
Corman,
Not
and
Corman.
something AHI, or I can't remember, one of those.
Right.
Cool. Very
But
cool.
yeah, that's a great movie. Yeah,
Yeah, I want to check it out. I look for recommendations, so I appreciate it. Thanks.
Cool.
yeah,
And,
yeah, sure.
And Bart and Justin, I'm part of why I bring people on the show together is to link them up. So hopefully you guys can strike up a friendship, and maybe there's a collaborative effort down the road between you guys as well.
I want to see these Frankenstein movies.
And again, yeah,
Doctor
once they're out there, we'll definitely update folks on this show as well, and let people know what's going on. Folks, if you're really interested in Universal Monsters, we didn't do a deep dive, but there's a lot of great folks that do. Check out Matt Draper, Dark Corners Reviews, and of course, I can't go without mentioning the Antonia Carlotta YouTube channels. Those folks are lousy with great deep dives into Universal Monster stuff. We just talked about the emotion and the love of it, because it is all for the love of monsters, universal and otherwise. Folks, I am John Carl Pepe. This is the Pep Talk. We will see you in a month with some more shenanigans. In the meantime, you can always find me at the Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. As long as I'm feeling healthy and that store is open, I will be there. And I can't wait to get back to work on Tuesday. Happy 2026, everybody. Love you, Johnny. God bless. Thanks for watching the Pep Talk.
And thanks to all of you. Happy New Year and great success with all your endeavors in the coming year. Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.